Welcome, everyone, to the first Pius podcast. We'll call it the Pius Pod, for lack of a better name. We're going to talk about today the history of the St. Pius X Catholic High School and Marist School rivalry. We're going to focus on football today, although it extends, of course, to all the sports. Let me set the scene with a little history regarding the football. We will play the 60th Fish Bowl on Friday night at Marist. Over the history, we have 38 Marist wins, 18 Pius wins, and 3 ties. This rivalry started back in 1962. Of course, Marist School started in 1901. St. Pius X started in 1958. And I had a word with one of our first players, Mark Kelly, our legendary athletic director, played in the 60s under George B. Maloof, and he said, quote, "We beat Marist all the time." And the first one we won or would tie 12 of the first 14. So the rivalry kind of started off great from a St. Pius perspective. Then it went really sour in the 80s and 90s. Marist sort of dominated on the football field. Wasn't really a rivalry, actually. We lost 21 times in a row. Mark Kelly was then the athletic director. He hired Paul Standard. Paul brought it all back in 2003 with maybe one of the biggest wins for St. Pius in the rivalry. Handed quarterback Sean McVay their only loss of the season as Marist would win the state title. McVay now, of course, Super Bowl winning coach in the NFL. That day, the AJC, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, had a headline that said, "Pius upset Marist," and underneath it said, "Grown men weep." And Mark Kelly said we were crying on both sides that day. For a while there, and then the rivalry kind of felt kind of off a bit after that win. Coach Kelly and President Spellman initiated a nice kind of détente between the two teams. Coach Kelly said, when we played at Marist, our chaplain would say the prayer, and when we played here, their chaplain would say the prayer. And the national anthem was actually played by both bands together. So maybe we'll start thinking about getting that back together. They said they sent a letter out to both families. Hey, we're opponents, we're not enemies. Good competition is great, but we're all in this together. Two Catholic schools who just want the best for their kids. So let's get up to speed now. Our last win in the rivalry was 7 years ago. That was 17-0. But with me today, I've got some absolute superstars. First, we've got Coach Chad Garrison. He's in our 24th year now with the football team. He started in 2001, 5th year as head coach. We've also got an alumni former player, Will Asip. He was a freshman on that 2003 team, and he actually went on and played in the Georgia Dome, the first time we ever played the Dome. And we've got our president, current alum, 2006, Mr. Aaron Parr, a basketball superstar of his own right and absolute Pius, passionate lover. So, Aaron, let me get this started with you, and maybe you can ask some of these guys that are involved in the football program what they think about the rivalry.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. This is a really cool thing we're doing, just talking about this rivalry. I think this rivalry on the football field is something that both teams look forward to every year. It was certainly something I remember looking forward to as a fan, and just the anticipation leading up to the game, and just the history of both schools, just how much history both schools have, both programs have. And so, yeah, we thought it'd be cool to bring in some guests that have a lot of history with our football program, Coach Garrison and Will Asip. Will, I wanted to start with you. Just you come from a really long line of Pius family. The Asip name is one of the all-time great names in Pius history. When did you first get, when did you first experience Pius football as a kid? When did you know about it, and when did you first start learning about the rivalry?
Well, yeah, so my dad is one of 8 kids, and 6 boys, all of which played football here. So they were part of that 1960s and 70s era when they beat Marist a lot. So obviously I wasn't born then, but early in life we would come to all the Pius games, but we always made sure we made it to the Marist game. My dad, my uncles, my grandfather, we'd all come to the game. So I was exposed to the rivalry really early on, and then also in school, because I went to St. Jude, one of the parochial schools. A lot of my classmates and friends were families that ultimately either were going to go to Marist or Pius. So you had friends growing up with, and you know, always anticipated where everybody was going to go at the end, unless they were a long lineage family at one of the schools. But sure enough, you know, some of my best friends ended up being opponents at Marist all 4 years, and it was really fun playing against them.
Yeah, that's one of the most unique things I think about this rivalry is how well the kids know each other. Like, I remember it playing against some of my best friends on the basketball court, but you know, Will mentioned St. Jude. Both of our kids now go to St. Jude, and for the first time, I kind of experienced that with some people asking if my daughter was going to go to the Marist football game last week, because I guess some of them were going, and it was like, no, she's going to come to the Pius football game. But that is something where kids, you know, grow up as best friends and then end up going to each school and competing. It's pretty unique. Chad, I wanted to ask you about, because my first big experience with the rivalry was obviously that 2003 game. I was a sophomore here as a student, so I was there, and we knew our team was having a good season. It was like a really kind of a special season that year. But you were on that staff. Tell us a little bit about anything go on during that game that might have been unique, or anything you remember about being a part of coaching in that game.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on this podcast. I appreciate you guys putting this together. And it is such a tremendous rivalry. We love playing, you know, the Marist War Eagles and Alan Chadwick and his staff and his kids. 2003 was a special year for us. You know, it was my third year here. And, you know, it was one of the last varsity football games we played on grass here, because we were fortunate enough to go to turf in 2004. So that was one of the last big victories we had here on that field. And I think one of the things that happened was we had some really good offensive line play. Our fullback, Evan Ty, he had a great night running the ball. There's a great picture we have of we ran a trap play, and it opened up like the Red Sea, and there's a great picture of Evan going through this huge hole, and I always will remember that. And you know, there were some things that happened during that game. I remember on one punt, our defense had done a great job and stopped Marist, and our middle linebacker at the time, Pete Anderson, he put a pretty good shot on the quarterback at the time, Mr. McVeigh, and that kind of changed the game a little bit for us, I think. And it was just great to break the streak there in 2003. And I always remember somebody driving by as we were coming back up to the Denellen Center said, well, it took you 20 years, you know, and then our former head coach, he said, no, it only took us 3, and which was, you know, because that was the third year we'd been together. And so it's always going to be a heated, passionate rivalry. You know, we want to get back on the winning side this year, and but it's just always fun to play them because it's always a packed house. You know, our like you guys have, like both Will and Aaron have said, our kids grow up together. You know, they played youth sports together, and then they go to separate high schools, but they do remain close friends, and they can be, you know, enemies on the field, but friends off of it. So it's always a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. And just Chad, a follow-up question for you for that. After beating them, what they obviously, you know, got us the next couple of years. What was it like after beating them? Did you feel a sense that they were a little bit had a chip on their shoulder, a little bit angry about that?
They had quite a chip on their shoulder, and you know, we had a couple of games there right away where I think they kind of reminded us of the dominance that they had in the 70s and 80s. You know, and you know, it kind of it helped re-energize us into what we had to do to prepare. You know, it's such a big game. All of our fans and the community know about the game, but we always try to keep in perspective that it's one of 10 regular season games, and that's awful hard to do because no matter where the game's played, and we played them beginning of the season, middle, end, we played them late in the playoffs too. When they're on the schedule, it's something that everybody always looks forward to, and they're always looking ahead to. And sometimes we get kind of caught up looking ahead too far, and we always try to keep everybody in check so that we're worried about the opponent on that week instead of worrying about 2 or 3 or 4 weeks down the line. So.
Yeah, and Will, I want to ask you another question, just kind of going back to you playing here. And it, could be the Marist game specifically or any home game, but I always watch, the players come down the middle and, come down with the Vatican flag and the American flag, and I always think that's such a cool entrance. Welcome to the jungle playing. How did that feel as a player, especially in that rivalry game, to have that, experience? How did that feel to you, before a game?
Intense. And I still get chills thinking about it. I mean, you get goosebumps. There's nothing like it. And I remember all the coaches, I started playing here in 6th grade and played all the way through high school and then came back and coached. And it's always the same feeling. It's just intense. There's no other way to get pumped up for a game than running down those steps.
We've changed it a little bit now. You used to come from Denellen, and now they
Yeah.
come from the St. Joan of Arc Fieldhouse,
Yeah.
but it's still kind of that same thing with all the parents and kids. I always found that to be like one of the coolest entrances in all of Georgia.
Well, and I think, coming from the Joan of Arc Center, it actually has made the line a lot longer, because now the parents and the fans are not only at the top of the stadium, but now they snake their way up to the first level of the steps right there as we come out of the locker room. And so it's even more, I think it adds to it, but as we tell everybody, in our middle school program, there's nothing like that anywhere in the state of Georgia. When you put that gold helmet on and you come down those steps, it's just a tremendous feeling. Like Will said, I mean, I'm getting hairs on the back of my neck standing up just thinking about it. And in my 26 years here, I've done it a couple of times, but it's such an intense thing. It's almost, I'm so worried. And I know our kids are the same way. They're so worried about falling down the steps. They're just trying to make sure they stay balanced and everything as they come down, because everybody's so pumped up and excited to see everybody coming down. It's really a great motivational thing as you come down those steps. So
Yeah. And Chad, I wanted to ask you, just from being a part of the football program for so long, obviously Alan Chadwick also has that in his staff where they've been around. I mean, I think they said it was his 50th year in coaching and maybe 41st year as head coach.
42nd year, I think.
42nd year.
42nd year, yeah.
And then you've got, guys like Dan Perez and Jeff Ewart and Paul Etheridge. And so they've been together for so long. Playing them so many times, what do you think just makes their staff, what do they do well? What makes them special and hard to play against?
That's a great question. And I think you just mentioned it, is the continuity. And I have great respect for Alan and Dan and Paul and, Jeff Hewitt and all those guys. Gary Miller's another one who's been there for a long time. John Embry's been on the staff now for a while. Have great respect for all those men because they are both tremendous men and they are great football coaches. Of course, we want to beat them every time we get a chance, whether it be middle school, 9th grade, JV, varsity, whatever it is. But I think the continuity of the staff over there, speaks to their high quality of play. Those guys have been together for so long. Some of them have been together there for 30 to 35 years. And they do a great job with their kids. But there aren't any secrets between the two teams. We all know what they're going to do. They know what we're going to do. We always go back and look at, previous fakes and things and some special things that they've tried to do in preparation. I think we pulled up a punt fake from 2009 just to make sure we showed our kids this week just in case something happens so that we're prepared for it. But it's always an exciting time to get prepared for them and be ready. And the consistency of the coaching staff and the things that they do has been a hallmark of that program over there.
Yeah, we certainly all have a lot of respect for their coaching staff at Marist, and both programs that really are about the same things, playing against each other. Will, I wanted to ask you kind of a different question. So you played against Marist, I would imagine, 4 times. You had freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Do you have like a favorite memory, like individually in any of those games that comes back to you?
Yeah, probably so. My senior year, we didn't win, and it was here at home, but I had 2 touchdowns, and both of them, 2 different players, but 2 different kids I grew up with, former friends. I burned them up down the sideline and got to look back at them in the end zone and smile. So, I remember that.
That's awesome. Yeah, and Will's senior year, the team was unbelievable. They ended up going to the Georgia Dome and playing. I remember it because it was my freshman year of college, and a bunch of us came back to go to the game. I think it was Northside Warner Robins? Yeah, Northside Warner Robins. We made this great run. I think beat Thomas County Central in overtime in the quarterfinals, which winning there is near impossible. And we did it, and it was just a special season, Will's senior year, that we had making that run to the state semifinals. So,
Will, I'm seeing that actually we only scored 14 points that game, so you were responsible for the entire scoring output that game. Well done. Let me ask you, do you still enjoy the Fishbowl rivalry? Are you still part of it? Do you want to bring your family to it? Have you been keeping in touch?
Absolutely, yeah. It's funny, my son asked me the other day, one of his classmates was going, like you said, to the Marist game, and he asked me, a number of his friends if they were going to go to Marist or Pius, and I told him, I don't know, it depends on the family. And he's like, no, I hope everybody goes to Pius with me, because he knows he's coming to Pius.
Well, we need to hook up, me and you, and awesome. start doing some second grade recruiting.
That's right.
in Miss Dempsey's class.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the same thing. My whole family will be there on Friday for the game, and it's exciting. But one cool thing the two teams do, Joe, I don't know, well, you know now, is the administrations for a long time, I guess, have hosted the other administration for dinner before the game, which is kind of a special thing for the rivalry, just to get together and understand we're both Catholic schools. We're all about bringing young people closer to Jesus Christ, and we're all, fighting the same battles sometimes and at our schools and trying to do the same thing. So that they're doing that at 6:00, so we're appreciative to them for doing that, and we do it when they come here. So that's also kind of a cool thing that many people might not know about the rivalry, at least the football rivalry.
Right. I love some of my neighbors are, just like you said, Marist and Pius are so connected. Your neighbors, your friends go to Marist, and I remember my first introduction into St. Pius was that 2014 win at Marist, where it was 10-9, and I think there was a late field goal or something, and I'll never forget the spirit of. I knew going into it, I had learned from some of my friends that were coaches, like the Marist philosophy at that time was, it's a lose-lose situation for us to play Pius, because if we win, we are expected to win, no problem. If we lose, it hurts us for the rest of our lives. So there's really was no winning at the time when Marist seemed to have sort of like a dominant run. So I'll never forget that win at their place. One of the players kind of standing up on what I assume must have been Schmitty's training table at the end, just cheering on the crowd. And it's those kind of memories and feelings, again, chill bumps that just gets you going. I don't think there's a rivalry like it. So Chad, let me ask you, what are you looking at Friday? What do you expect? Are you going to be nervous? You're going to be anxious? You're going to be confident? What do you think? What's going to happen?
Well, definitely confident and anxious for our kids to get on the field and perform. One of the things that we keep reminding them of is they don't have to have Superman capes on. They just got to be players and go play to the best of our ability, and let's make it a 4-quarter game and see what happens at the end. They've done a really good job against us defensively the last couple of years, so we want to be able to move the ball and stay ahead of the chains, and then get 6 points when we have the opportunity. We don't want to miss chances in the red zone when we get down there. Their defense is stout as usual. I think they're giving up. I think their average is like 6.7 points a game, so we got our work cut out for us. But then their offense is very much similar to what they've done in the past. Their quarterback is doing a really good job leading them down the field, so our defense has got to have great both eye discipline and then position discipline, not try to do too many things. If they're assigned to the fullback, they got to tackle the fullback, and if you're assigned to the quarterback, go to the quarterback. We want to try to make them do some things that they're not used to doing, and then we want to be able to take advantage of it on offense and move the ball down the field, be consistent. This is one of those games where it might be one of the quickest games in history because both teams are run dominant. It might be one of those that's over by 9:15, But if it ends up being a tight score, who knows? A big pass play may make the difference. I think another big key is special teams. Both teams have really good special teams, and both punters have the opportunity to flip the field if needed. Both programs have solid field goal kicking, and can score points when they get inside the 40-yard line. So we're looking forward to it. I wish we could play tomorrow. I always get more anxious in the time from the end of school on Friday to game time, because I'd like us to get out of school and go play. But it's going to be a great opportunity for everybody to get out there and see one of the best high school rivalries in the country, and we're looking forward to seeing everybody there on Friday night.
I think one of the great things about this rivalry in particular, and maybe rivalries too that are around the country, but ours in particular, it seems like if somebody is a heavy favorite in any of the sports, in football, basketball, whatever, if somebody's a heavy favorite, I talked to Coach Kelly this morning, and he said, throw all that out the window. Yeah. This is a big rivalry. There's anything can happen, and anything usually does. Yeah. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There have been a few years where we've been the dominant team, and it's been a back and forth game. And we've got some wins. They've gotten some wins. I remember even in 23 when we had a down year in the program, our kids battled their butts off, and the final score, ends up being 17-0, but it was a lot closer than that. And I know that our kids are going to be ready to play, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We can't wait for kickoff.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for joining us, Coach Garrison, Will, Asip, and President Parr. Appreciate your time so much, and go Pius.
That's right. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks
It's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Great to see you, Will.
You too.